finally back after a couple weeks of being gone.
But prior to all that happening, I had to get back over here to Jamaica. I just love it. Right out of my door, just look at all this banana trees and vegetation, coconut tree. Like, what could be better when you come out of your door and look at all this? This is what makes all my work worthwhile, is that I get this free time once in a while to unwind. Just lovely.
So, this floor was poured 2 weeks ago. This is as cured as a floor could possibly ever be. This is so dry that there's guaranteed 100% no water, no moisture content within this floor whatsoever. This is an ideal situation. Don't run into that very often. In fact, extremely rare where I get to wait that long. My backer board has started to go up since I have been back here, and cut out for the niche. The backer board is going to wrap around, as I mentioned before in my last video, the very first one on this series. All the backer board is going to go on all these walls because there's going to be tile on all these walls going all the way up. If you recall on the first video, this entire bathroom is going to be a wet room with a curbless shower, and that's the reason there's red guard. There's, I think, there's two coats on this floor, on the plywood floor, as it were, because my customer wanted to be extra sure that there would never ever be water penetration. So eventually there'll be backer board on top of here, quarter-inch backer board will go on top of here. I'll travel out thin set and I'll lay it on top of here, and once that's dry, I'll red guard all the backer board as well. So a couple, 2 or 3 layers to guarantee. Plus my pan liner comes out about, I guess, about 14 inches or so. Comes out from the shower that far too, all the way up to the toilet. In fact, if you recall from the first video, there was a pretty good gap. I had kind of chastised the plumber and the carpenter for not talking to each other, and I had mentioned that there's a really big gap between here and the edge of the toilet. Eventually when the plumber comes in to cut this down and put a flange on, there's bolts that hold the flange to the floor. There's going to be nothing to hold to the floor here because there was no wood to grab onto. So what I did is I put a strip of wood up underneath. I think I overlapped about this far, overlapped over there, so up underneath. And then on top of that, I put another piece of wood, screwed it down really well. So now, once the backer board goes down and all that stuff, it won't be a problem for the plumber to attach his flange to the floor. Those are little things. As I mention all the time, prep matters, and when you look ahead to certain things that have to work, the prep does matter a lot. In fact, this board right here had a curvature, a very profound curvature to it, and it was out from that top rail. It was out probably about 1/4 of an inch. So when I put a straight edge from this stud to that stud, I was getting some rocking because this is bumped out. So I went ahead and cut that out where the nails are on the top of there. I cut that out with a Sawzall blade and was able to push that back and kind of re-anchor it. So now I have a flat surface going across. And because this does have a curvature, I added a couple of scab 2x4s all the way down. The distance, this is an older bathroom, so nothing measures up the way it's supposed to. So I think the distance here is like 54 to this middle stud here. Before I put the scab pieces in, it's like 54 right in the center. And then as I go up here, my 54 mark is more off to the edge over here, so then I would have to cut my board at 54 1/4 to get it center. So rather than do that and deal with one piece of wood, I added another couple of pieces so that when I start putting my backer board on this back wall, things will measure up and I won't be cursing myself for not prepping right. So getting back to some of the prep. If you look down here, there is the pan liner, which gets pushed out because of the mortar. The mortar is not as tough when it's wet, and so it doesn't push the pan liner back far enough, and that goes with all four corners going across. And I've mentioned on other videos before, to take up that difference, what I do is I put some pieces of Durarock and I shove those pieces of Durarock far in there as I can to push that pan liner, the excess pan liner, up against the wall as much as I can. And then eventually, before I do all the rest of the prep on here, I'll put thin set, push all the thin set down inside of there so that I'll have a nice flat surface going across. And so that's what's going on there. It will happen over here too. If you notice, there's a gap between my pan liner and the mortar, and so I'll push some Durarock down inside of there as well. So I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Durarock. This is an anomaly for me. I don't care what the backer board is. When you use a topical membrane, whether it's Red Guard, Aqua Defense, Kurdish Luter, anything that you put on there as a topical membrane or as a barrier, as it were, negates whatever backer board is, which is why, by and large, I use grain board, because once I put my 2 or 3 coats of Red Guard on top of the grain board, it's inert. There's no water penetration, so it's kind of part and parcel to what a product called Dent Shield. Dent Shield is gypsum, and it has a waterproof coating already on it. But in this case, my customer had requested that I use Durarock, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm also using Durarock screws, which are right here. And all my backer board is going to get these Durarock screws at 8 inches apart, going up on all the studs. So I have bought many rolls of cement board tape, and this is a fiberglass mesh type of tape, and this will go on all of the seams. It will get embedded with thin set everywhere the Durarock meets another piece of Durarock. That will happen. This is something also that I don't normally use, and I don't use it because with Red Guard specifically, the topical membrane is also a crack prevention method. Tape is a crack prevention method. It's a little bit more obvious where this gap is at. Even though everything's waterproof back there, I'm still going to put some silicone back there, and I'm going to run the silicone along here where the pan liner is. And that's just going to ensure that no water could ever possibly get up under there, under the floor. Even though the floor is already Red Guarded, that's an extra precaution. Silicone caulking. And put a nice bead up underneath the back end of your pan liner. And alongside where the seam is, coming out to this direction. This is 100% silicone, by the way. It is not clear, and that's intentional, because with clear silicone, you're never quite sure exactly where your silicone is at. And with this this white silicone, you know exactly where you're putting this stuff, where it's ending and where it's beginning. Even if it's sloppy, you know that it's there. So now, as you can see, you have plenty, and so much so that when I put my wallboard up against here, the excess is going to squish out, which is okay, because it's still doing what it's supposed to do, giving you a watertight seal. One other thing, Durarock started putting, and I just noticed it, it's called edge guard. So they started putting this tape along the edges of their Durarock, which is kind of cool. I'm trying to think if there's a reason why they decided to do that other than to hold the pieces of rock in a lot better, which I think it does too. But it's kind of cool. It's like this this mesh type of fiber tape that's embedded onto the edge of their product. And I hadn't seen that before until I started using it today. Not sure if that's something that people have been asking for, or if Durock just went ahead on their own and started encompassing this tape thing on top. Has probably about 3 inches overlap on one end, and on the other end about 1.5 inches. So now my backer board is up on the walls, all the way to the ceiling. Everything is screwed in and taped, and it is ready to be mudded. I will be using thin set and mix it up fairly runny, so that it's going to last. It's going to take me probably a good part of an hour to go through all these seams. And oh, by the way, I talk about niches a lot. Niches don't get as much water as people assume that they do. But I had some caulking from when the silicone that I used down there, and on this side over here I had some left, so I went ahead and did some caulking on the inside of here before anything gets red guarded. Not necessarily, but because I had it anyway, I went ahead and used it. Also, this is 1/4 inch backer board, hardy backer to be specific, because my customer didn't want to take away from the width of this or the height, so I use a thin backer board. And that's it. I'm going to get started on getting all this stuff mudded, and once all this is dry by tomorrow, I'll be able to do my red guard on the entire wall system, and then I'll be able to start putting my backer board on my floor, get that red guarded, and then move on. Well, it hasn't been an hour. It's been probably an hour and a half or so. But it is obviously all mudded, ready to go. Well, not ready to go quite yet. Have to let that dry. Once all this is dry tomorrow, then I'll be able to do all my red guard. There's going to be a medicine cabinet here, which I was reminded of, and I actually had forgotten about. So tomorrow I'm going to have to cut that out and make that kind of nice and neat, so that the medicine cabinet eventually, when it's all tiled, will slip right in there. And that's it. That's all I can do for today. Once the red guard is done and I get the flooring done, then the prep will be finished. Probably about another 2 days. About another 2 days of prep to make all this happen. Then once that's done, I can start tiling, which I'm looking forward to. This is going to be an awesome looking bathroom. Now everything has been red guarded all the way to the ceiling, all the floor for the shower, niche, everywhere around. This is actually going to be a medicine cabinet, so the red guard got on everything, which is the whole point, since this is going to be a wet room. And my customer wanted to be extra careful that there was no water penetration into any of the walls or the floors. If you remember in the very beginning, I told you I red guarded this floor, the subfloor as it were, which is probably not necessary, but if water does get up under there, it's innocuous, it won't hurt anything. So the next step will be putting Durock on top of this. I'll trowel out some thin set and I'll nail down my Durock on top. When I did put the red guard around the edge there, I put some tape, and I cut out the tape when everything was dry, and there's just a very thin line of mortar that rested up against the drain there. So I ran some of my silicone caulking on all the sides around there to make sure that's waterproof also. Anyway, this is the final phase before tiling. Once this is down and I've red guarded that, then tomorrow I will start the tiling process. I will start with my floor area first, and then that will get covered up, and then I'll start doing my walls. Probably about 4 days, I'm going to say about 4 days, maybe 5 days worth of tiling in here to get everything straight and flush and correct and all that stuff. Anytime I do any type of tile, especially in here, all you have to think about if you want to do something like this is how water can get somewhere. So even on the edge here where my red guard came up against my pan liner, the red guard took up that difference, the crack in here, so that there's no water penetration into the pan or through the liner of any sort. And then you remember over here earlier where I had done some caulking. You can still clearly see the caulking is on there, but it's been red guarded also. Same on this end over here. So there's no way water is going to ever get into the floor, pan material, wall, anything at all. And that's as easy as it gets. Think like water, and you'll have an impervious bathroom if you're going to do a wet room like this. Well, by the time you watch this, I've already done a bunch of other work on the floor, and I will do the reveal. I will do the reveal in about 2 weeks. This Sunday is the 4th Sunday of the month, and I have been doing my live streams on the 3rd Sunday of the month, but I couldn't do it last Sunday. So look for the live stream. I'm going to send out notifications either today or tomorrow. The notifications will let you know that at 6 p.m. Is it 6? Yeah, I think it's 6 p.m. on Sunday, my live stream will begin. It'll probably last until about 7:30. The last couple that I've done have lasted 2 hours, and I think that's kind of extending it a little bit too far. But anyway, look for me on Sunday, 6 p.m. live stream. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, then subscribe. Hit that button and subscribe. I make nothing off of YouTube, so please be a Patreon member. I'm going to post a link down below to my Patreon account, and you can donate $1, $5, $10, $20 a month. Just pledge that on a monthly basis. That will help me produce more videos and content so that you can watch and learn from my channel. And donate at least $50 if you're going to call. If you're going to call for advice, donate to my PayPal, please. Donate first, and then feel free to call me or email me for advice. Otherwise, business calls only, please.